Thank you, Chair. This is to Mr. Bashir. Mr. Bashir, did you read the Auditor General's report?
Yes, sir, I did.
There are three sections that reference of significance that reference your company, KPMG. I'm just going to read that out into the record. We also found that the Public Health Agency of Canada awarded a professional service task authorization using a non-competitive approach to KPMG. We found no documentation of the initial communications or the reasons why the agency did not consider or select other eligible contractors to carry out the work. We found that three contractors, GC Strategies, 49 Solutions, and KPMG, were originally awarded professional services work with an original estimated total value of $4.5 million through non-competitive approaches. Multiple amendments were made to these non-competitive professional service contracts. Approximately half of the contract amendments extended the contract beyond the original period, which prevented or delayed opportunities for other contractors to compete for work. These amendments also resulted in additional costs. We also found that GC Strategies and KPMG were each awarded 2 additional contracts through non-competitive approaches. This further limited the opportunities for other contractors to compete for subsequent work. We found similar issues in the 2 professional services contracts awarded by the PHAC to KPMG. While the first contract included milestones with clear deliverables and pricing, these were later amended and replaced with less specific deliverables to allow for more flexibility. In addition, the agency did not set out specific tasks, levels of effort, and deliverables for these contracts in task authorizations. Mr. Bashir, what I just read out essentially captures the activities of GC Strategies. It highlights, in my opinion, both non-ethical and possibly criminal activities that caused the RCMP to launch an investigation, to ultimately raid the home of Christian Firth of GC Strategies, and to possibly lay at least fraud, if not forgery charges, in addition to other criminal activities. Were you aware of that, sir?
Thank you for the question. I'm aware of what was in the Auditor General's report, so yes, I'm aware that's there.
Were you aware of all of these amendments made? Was the company part of this? Were you engaged in making amendments to this contract, or was it done without the knowledge of KPMG?
Given that it's a PAC question, I'll pass that over to my colleague Lydia, who worked on that engagement.
Thank you for the member's question. If I can also bring you back to the testimony that I shared the last time I was here, after the original SEPS TAs expired and the Public Health Agency wanted to try and extend KPMG under that contract and were told by PSPC that they could no longer use that vehicle, and we don't know why. KPMG does not know why. KPMG was informed by the Public Health Agency that they were working through with their own internal procurement team a justification and rationale for keeping KPMG on. And as you'll remember, this was at the height of the lockdown of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the subsequent contracts that were awarded to KPMG by Public Health Agency were of the same type of work that we had been doing along the first original SEPS agreement. And
Yes. Can I be more specific? Were you actually involved in amending the terms of your own contract?
Thank you for the member's question. We absolutely were not. We were acting under the direction of the Public Health Agency at that time.
So the activities that the Auditor General highlights were done, you're saying, your evidence is, were done without your knowledge and consent. Is that correct?
Thank you for the member's question. We understood that the Public Health Agency wished to keep KPMG extended, but in terms of the inner workings with their local procurement team inside Public Health Agency, we were not involved in any of that.
Has the RCMP contacted KPMG to this date?
Thank you for your question. Regarding the ArriveCAN work that I supported and that Imran did, we are not aware of any RCMP conversations or communications.
In relation to any contracts that involve GC Strategies and Christian Firth, have you been contacted by the RCMP?
No, thank you, and neither of us have been.
Okay, Ms. Lee, I had asked you specifically on the last occasion if you would forward to the committee any and all levels of communication by the CBSA to KPMG to engage with GC strategies.
Your question, Mr.
I
Brock.
asked for text
Your question,
messages.
Mr. Brock. Mr. Brock, you're out of time. So if you have a question,
I do have a question.
then pose it.
Why haven't you delivered that to the committee?
So thank you very much for the member's question on that. And our understanding was that you wanted to understand the way in which we became, that Imran and our team became introduced to GC strategies at the time, and we did provide all of that information in our written response.
Thank you very much. Floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Bashir, I'm still going to be circling back on your relationship with GC Strategies and Christian Firth. Your evidence is somewhat clear, 3 to 4 possible meetings with Mr. Firth before you engaged with him pursuant to direction given by Mr. Utano. Did any of those meetings occur at his place of business?
No, sir, they did not.
Okay. All at the government offices?
All in the lobby of 90 Elgin, from what I recall, yes.
Were you familiar with where he conducted his business?
I did not have any line of sight into that.
He probably didn't tell you he operated out of his basement, did he?
I did not have any line of sight into that either.
No, he didn't offer that.
That's correct.
Didn't tell you where he worked out of? Did he give you a business card at least?
It's possible. I don't recall, but I don't recall the basement conversation coming up.
Okay, so help me with this because I have a hard time reconciling the evidence that your partner, Mr. Hartaj Najir, gave on the last occasion and your evidence today with respect to a very key issue. And my colleague, Mr. Nader, had basically used a phrase called flim-flammed. You weren't familiar with that phrase. It could be hoodwinked. It could be snowed. It could be lied to. You certainly didn't know, is what I understand. You didn't know that they offered no IT services whatsoever. They were strictly a middleman, connecting the government of Canada with professionals. You're saying you didn't know that, and Mr. Firth didn't volunteer that information. That's what you're telling us today, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so here's the problem. Your partner, Mr. Najir, on the last occasion at committee said the following. The firm, KPMG, followed rigorous processes and determined no adverse considerations in contracting with GC Strategies, given that they were a well-known entity in the government sector. Both versions cannot be true at the same time. What were those rigorous processes that determined there were no adverse considerations? Did you at least do an address check?
Thank you for the question. I don't know the detail, and I'll ask Ms. Lee after this to provide whatever details you can about our acceptance processes as that is executed by another team. But my understanding is that they look into a variety of factors, including the board of directors or C-suite, any kind of
Board of directors. It was a partnership. It wasn't a corporation. So let's move on to the other checks.
Thank you. My understanding is they look for, any public lawsuits or adverse media attention, things of that nature. But Ms. Lee, please, if I'm missing anything in our...
That's right. That's correct.
And at that given time, given that these are, point in time assessments, nothing of concern was raised.
A leading multinational consulting firm exercises the bare minimum of due diligence to determine that you are legitimately dealing with an IT company that lied to you. Don't you recognize the problems inherent with what you just stated to me? Don't you think you need to revamp your investigative measures to determine who you're actually dealing with?
Thank you for the member's question, and if I may, Mr. Chair, I just want to comment on the testimony from Hartaj last time we were here. He was referring to the client engagement and the engagement acceptance process that we go through for every single project that we do, which is the and if I
Ms.
may,
Lee, that's fine. This is my time. I have some other questions to ask of you. So, Mr. Utano asked you to deal specifically with GC Strategies in the virtual meeting that you had with him, correct? Okay. Did he say why?
At that time, my understanding was that he was exploring a variety of procurement options as likely direct.
Give you any other government, he didn't give you any other companies to deal with. He didn't say you can deal with GC or you can deal with Dalian or you can deal with Coridex. You choose. He just said, I want you to work with GC, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So at the time, we were exploring either, like I said, going out to RFP, full RFP, using the SEPS vehicle, or GC Strategies were the
And
three
that's the
options.
first time that you had ever, working with the government of Canada, you had ever worked with a contractor that wasn't directly the government of Canada. Isn't that fair to say?
Me personally, that was my first time, but as our written response stated, our firm has subcontracted in the past with approximately 13 companies.
Thank you. That is your time there.